Welcome to Bet Park Saturday, live from the Sportsbook here at Parks Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky, taking you from 12 to 2 here on the PHLY Sports YouTube page, sitting alongside my producer, Julia Hoff. We have a lot to talk to and a lot to talk about tonight. The Flyers, of course, back in the NHL playoffs for the first time in 6 years. They're in Pittsburgh taking on those hated Penguins. We're going to talk to Brian Boucher, the Flyers' former goalie, and now the NHL analyst for NBC Sports Philadelphia, as well as TNT. He'll join us coming up at 1 o'clock. And, of course, we're going to get into the Philadelphia 76ers back in the playoffs as well, taking on the Boston Celtics. Sixers play-by-play man Tom McGinness will join us coming up at 12:40 to talk about Joel Embiid's situation, as well as the Sixers. Do they stand a chance in the NBA playoffs beginning tomorrow at 1 against the Celtics? Of course, the NFL draft Thursday, the key issues coming into the draft, not so much about the players who they may or may not select, but really surrounding A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Now, let's get the very latest with ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. He wrote a big piece just a few weeks ago after the NFL owners' meetings in Arizona about the friction between Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeremy, we appreciate you joining us today on Bet Park Saturday. How's it going?
Hey, good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you joining us. So you wrote about the friction with Jalen Hurts in the organization, and really that this quarterback is at a crossroads in his career right now. After this has come out, where do you think things stand right now between Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, it's a long offseason, so really they know they need to get to work, get through the draft, and get to phase one of the offseason work, OTAs. They'll have at least 9 sessions like all teams do, and they'll get to work with Hurts and the new offense with Sean Mannion. So there is a level of excitement and curiosity with the Eagles as to how this is all going to go. But I can say that Jalen Hurts, according to the people I've talked to, has been more open to change than maybe in the past. Certainly he realizes that some of these changes can be good for him in the game and for the Eagles offense as a whole. So he has a whole offseason to know exactly what's going to be changed and what they need to do, whether it's with the under center stuff or, play action, the way they run things, the motions and the shifts and all that fun stuff. So the feeling is Hurts is going to be ready to go for that and that they'll be able to move forward. So certainly there was a lot of reaction to the piece. Really our goal dating back to October, November, when we first started to work on this, is what's ailing the Eagles offense and why is it going this direction? And part of it was through the lens of A.J. Brown and why he was seemingly every week having frustrations on the sidelines. And so, the story kind of took us in the direction of Hurts based on the sources we spoke to, but certainly he's far from the only one to blame for what happened last year.
Yeah, there was so much. And you talk about the injuries with the offensive line, and you have an offensive coordinator. And I felt like Hurts last year talked multiple times, more than we've seen in the past, about just the challenge of all these different play callers, all these different offensive coordinators. And that goes back to Alabama and Oklahoma, let alone what he has dealt with since coming into the league, taking over for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, rarely does a quarterback have the kind of change that he has. Now, he's at least had the framework of the Nick Sirianni system, which has its own branches from his past experience. Kevin Patullo was with him, and Patullo was, a pass game coordinator sounding board to Hurts and to some other players before he worked himself into that offensive coordinator role. So there was always some familiarity, but the fact that you have a new voice in your ear every year, it's been a challenge, certainly, and there's no doubt about that. But I think going into last offseason, throughout it, leading up to the year, the feeling was that the offense was going to be status quo for the most part, or familiar with what they ran with Sirianni and Patullo. But then I think they realized they couldn't run the ball very well, so they had to change some things and try to go under center. And that was like a change that Hurts might not have expected. I think he likes, from what I've gathered, I can't speak for him, but he likes to not be surprised and know that he has all offseason to work on something in particular. Now he does have that. And it's a drastic change for the most part, but it's one that won't catch him by surprise. It's one that he can spend the next eight months preparing for.
With this article coming out a few weeks ago, do you think the Eagles here and people within the organization and sources that spoke to you and to McManus, that the Eagles essentially are sending a message here for Jalen Hurts to essentially shape up or ship out? Do you think it's that clear cut?
Well, I can only speak for our reporting and where we came from with it. It came from just an honest place of what's ailing the offense and what's next. And this was, I think, when these stories come out, and given the timing of the story coming out April 1st, I think there was an assumption that, the Eagles were at the owners' meetings and just started talking to people and wanted this story to come out. That was very far from the case. That was not at all the case. It's something we've been working on for months. And, we gave the Eagles a chance to comment and to have Hurts comment. That was declined. And so you just lean on the reporting from the sources that you did speak to. So it was really more us seeking out the issues of the offense more so than anything planted or offered up. And I think it was pretty clear from what GM Howie Roseman said the other day. I can't speak for him, but he made a point to say that they speak to their players directly. So that was, to me at least, a message that, like, hey, we don't need to send a message in the media. We can send that message directly to a player if we have an issue. So It seems like I'm sure they've talked to Hurts at some point about these things, and they kind of made that clear publicly, I thought, a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting about that is that Howie admitted that among their faults is sometimes being direct with some of their players. Yeah. And I think you also really cleared it up there where you're saying that this wasn't a thing that came out at the NFL owners meetings.
No, not at all.
That we've been working on for months as the offense came out of the chute in September and just really struggling. Yeah. And everyone and their mother's going, what's with these guys, right? I mean, they're defending Super Bowl champions. They don't look right. Everything's off. People are blaming Patullo. Hurts doesn't look like himself. So I think that is a really interesting distinction that, okay, we didn't just come up with this, or we didn't just start talking to people at the owners' meetings.
Yeah.
What I would tell you, what I do find interesting is that Howie Roseman also did not shut it down. Just like he hasn't shut down the A.J. Brown trade speculation, did not shut down the situation and this report by you guys when he was asked about it. And he basically said some of this stuff can be unfair when it does come out. But he could have been like, hey, Jalen Hurts is our guy, but he didn't say that. And so is that surprising to you that Jalen Hurts within that answer did not necessarily get a vote of confidence?
Well, I would say Howie Roseman is a savvy, experienced general manager who has a lot of different variables in the air at all times. You have the Jalen Hurts situation. You have A.J. Brown's future. You have the draft coming up. So, some of these general managers they know how to say something without painting themselves in a corner to where, if you say something declarative, totally definitive, and something changes 4 months from now, you kind of have to be a little more nimble with your comments. That's just more a general comment about how GMs approach the media this time of year. So, he's a savvy GM. I think he knows how to get his point across and how he wants to. That represents the Eagles well without making bold declarations about the next 3 to 5 years. I know GMs and head coaches are really worried about that, of not saying something that could change in 4 to 6 months, because it's a very fluid business as a whole. So it probably struck the tone I expected. I think by them acknowledging that they thought the story was unfair, is at least a nod to Hurts in his direction, that, hey, we sort of sympathize with what's going on and we support you, in a way. But you're right. They didn't totally bash the story either and say it was not true. So,
yeah. And I don't say it's unfair that the story is unfair. I just think what they meant was that it's unfair that it comes out in the media, not saying that what you guys reported was unfair information. And I think there's a distinction between the two.
Possibly, I can't speak for them in that regard, but it's certainly a possibility. Every team has to kind of ask themselves a question when a story comes out: is where exactly is this coming from, and who might be speaking? That game can be played. I can say that between 53 NFL players on a roster, practice squad, executives, scouts, coaches, like, buildings are very big, so certainly, when you cover the league, you try to develop relationships and where you can just kind of get some honest feedback on what's going on with the team. I think part of the story is we were asking around on what's going on with A.J. Brown. We sensed more, directly we're told there was probably more sympathy for Brown in the building at the time because of some of the frustrations with the quarterback. I think that's partly where the story started. It really was probably more of a story about Brown and Hurts. It developed into more, okay, well, some teammates kind of understand what Brown's dealing with, even if he's kind of being a crybaby, which is a word that was used a couple times that we heard about Brown's behavior last year.
Well, it is interesting because I don't think anybody had an issue with what A.J. Brown was saying my point is, I don't think anybody thought A.J. Brown was wrong with any of the comments that he made, whether it was on Twitch or whether it was in the locker room, wherever it was. I think the issue that most people had was, it's creating drama to do it through the media, to do it in public, to do it on social media. That was creating the drama. And what you're saying is that we started going down that rabbit hole, and it turned out to be, hey, there's more to this here. It's not just Patullo. There is some stuff with Jalen Hurts that is affecting. Obviously, there's a major domino effect, and a lot of it does start up front with the offensive line and things like that. But what I also wanted to ask you is, covering the league for such a long time, are you surprised that when you look at Jalen Hurts and go, he could have easily been a 2-time Super Bowl MVP?
Yeah.
He had the best deep balls in the NFL. He's won a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. He took over a Carson Wentz very difficult situation a handful of years ago. Jalen Hurts appears to be a really good quarterback, right? He's done some really good things in this league. Are you surprised that this stuff does come out? And you do have sources that are willing to say this about Hurts when you look at his overall body of work?
I would say mildly surprised, and we were mildly surprised to hear some of the things that we did throughout the course of the story. I will lean on past experiences too. 2023, we did a story about some of the tension between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and that was an issue. So we had that to draw off of, so this was not necessarily new in that regard, some of the same issues, but it's surprising through the prism of his success rate. Wins a ton of games, Super Bowl winner, like you said, close to a 2-time winner, performs well in January, has a lot of really good qualities. So we tried to be really mindful of that, and as fair as we possibly could be in the story, to contextualize that part of it and to give Hurts every chance to address the story and, to try to talk to people close to Hurts to balance out the story for that reason. I will go back to, in the simplest form, NFL offenses largely are about running the ball, yes, but it's also largely about just being able to throw from the pocket quickly, quick decision-making, play action, marrying the run and the pass, all that stuff. And when you have an Eagles offense that, was 29th in passing offense, I want to say in 24, 23rd or in the low 20s ranked this year, when you have back-to-back years of being in the bottom third, clearly in the bottom third of passing, that's an issue, so you can compare Hurts to other quarterbacks, but the top guys don't deal with that. They're not in that realm. Lamar Jackson is. Baltimore was the only other team I remember in that list behind Philadelphia that had like an established superstar type quarterback. The other teams were in transition, the Jets, the Browns, all those teams, so when you're in that company, it's not good. And Lamar Jackson, to that point, it has been a dual threat, more of a running quarterback who was never a volume passer necessarily. 2024, he kind of broke out as more of a passer, but was never really in that mold. So when you're living in that world, there's a problem with the passing game, and the quarterback probably has some shortcomings. And that's kind of, in the simplest form, how I would describe it, why I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and within your reporting and everything else that you know and you cover around the NFL, does this at all feel like it could be the Carson Wentz 2.0 situation where, Carson Wentz leads the Eagles, essentially puts them in position to win a Super Bowl in 2017. Nick Foles, of course, takes over, and the rest is history. And then, it gets hurt, and things start coming out about Carson Wentz. Yeah. And next thing you know, Jalen Hurts is here, and you're going, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Does this feel similar where, okay, stuff's coming out about Jalen Hurts? He doesn't have a lot of money guaranteed coming up after this season. Does it feel like it could be another one of those situations, especially when you add the fact that Howie Roseman did not come out and say, hey, Jalen's our guy, I don't know what you're talking about. He did get a vote of confidence from Jeffrey Lurie, the Eagles owner, at the owners' meetings. Yeah. But overall, do you think this could be a Carson Wentz 2.0 situation?
Well, we're about to find out in the next 5 to 7 days, I would say. If they take a quarterback in the second round like they did with Jalen Hurts, then it's the exact same situation. But I hate to pass the buck to the draft, but that is kind of a barometer a little bit as to how they look at things. Now, different situation in that, they have a clear need at receiver and pass rusher, depending on what they do with AJ. So early in the draft, they could try to address those issues, or do they go trade for like a Jonathan Grenard in Minnesota or make that kind of move to get a pass rusher? what do they have left after that point? You know, is it a third or fourth round quarterback potentially? I think they like Ty Simpson. Does that mean they're going to draft Ty Simpson? No, a lot of teams like Ty Simpson. And he's probably late first, maybe early second. So a guy like that would be tough to get. But this is a year where it's not a great quarterback class, but you have some intriguing options in like round 3 through 5, you know, or maybe even past that. You know, you got like Penn State's Jrue Holiday that's immensely talented, but has had struggles with footwork and accuracy. Do you take a chance on a guy like that? You know, Garrett Nussmeier mid-rounds, maybe late day 2. The options could be there. So I'm curious to see what they do. They might not do anything at quarterback, which tells you, A, certainly they're comfortable with Hurts. Who's the guy in 2026 regardless? I don't want to speculate here. To your point about Wentz, you know, I have talked to some people in the league who at least wonder, do they duplicate what they did with the Wentz-Hurts transition and draft a guy day 2? That's a question that is asked in some league circles. We'll see what the Eagles ultimately do. I think they have too many needs, at least those top 2 needs, a receiver and pass rush, to have to draft a quarterback high this year.
Yeah, and you make the case, obviously, with safety and offensive line and everything else. And sticking on that,
that's a good one.
One of the things that was in the article was, quote, poor body language, not always bought in, not the most coachable, and the players notice, a team source said. Now, so you report that, and I say that to say, did you get a sense that people believe that Hurts can fix that and things can change with new offensive coordinator Sean Mannion?
I think so. You know, and there's some optimism right now that certainly he's open to change. Some of the people I've talked to believe that he's more open to change than maybe he had led to believe in the past, which is ultimately a good sign, you know. And they know he's going to work hard. You know, they know he's incredibly driven. All his good qualities will come out too. So because of that, I do sense some optimism, and certainly we'll see where it goes. But this is the time of year where everybody's pretty optimistic and the bullets are not flying yet. So I think if things go poorly in the first 4 to 6 months in the season, can they stick together and show some resolve together and not deviate? And, you know, if A.J. Brown's out there, which I think will ultimately be traded, but, you know, can his body language hold up if he's running 50 routes a game and he's unhappy and not getting the ball? So it's going to be fascinating. You know, if Devontae Smith is their number 1 option, I think that's a really interesting wrinkle because, A, I do think he's certainly capable of that. I think he's still probably underrated when it comes to receiver play in the NFL. I'm really fascinated to see what happens if he's the guy because I think he's different than A.J. Brown in how he handles things, where if A.J. is out there and speaking publicly a little bit but not wanting to throw the quarterback under the bus, but then the body language is bad on Brown's side, I think Devontae is pretty much he's honest and he is who he is. And I think he was described to me as a side conversation guy. Like, if he has something he needs to tell Hurts, he's going to have a side conversation and tell him, and that will be the end of it. That's probably a healthy way to do it. And I think Devontae Smith would like to see some more layups in the offense from what I was told. You know, like every play is, hey, we got to go win on coverage and get open and make a great play, where I think the point of this offense and this style is that you do get some layups. You get some created, manufactured plays where you get the ball. You know, maybe it's a quick crossing route, but you get it and there's some space to run. So I think he'll be excited about that.
Final few questions here with ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. You talk about the A.J. Brown situation, and you mentioned it there that you believe that he is traded. I think one of the things last year that was most interesting to me is A.J.'s complaining about, you know, getting the ball, and I get receivers go through that on really every team. But he's complaining. But to your point, Devontae Smith had less targets at that point than A.J. Brown, right? And they go about it in ways. The other side of it really is, okay, well, maybe A.J. Brown has gone to Jalen Hurts. Maybe A.J. Brown has gone to Patullo and Kellen Moore in years past, and Nick Sirianni and Howie and things like that. I mean, Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie has said he talks to A.J. Brown all the time, right? So if you go, maybe he has and it's not working, kind of like Brandon Graham a few years ago, you get it out there to really try to fix the situation. It makes for great TV, makes for great talk. I don't know if it makes for great, inner workings in a locker room, but if that's what fixes the issue, that's what fixes the issue, right? I mean, you get to a point maybe of desperation where they're just trying to fix the situation.
Yeah, and certainly there are a lot of ways to do that. I think communication behind the scenes is probably the most important, and just being direct. And We in our reporting, we didn't find any sort of blow up moment between AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, but as one source put it, both of them internalized a little bit, which is probably why healthy communication didn't happen as often as it should have. And so if Brown stays and is not traded, I think they'll have to find a healthy way for those two to coexist. And if he is traded, then I think things will be different by nature with how Devontae will handle things. And then you have a lot of different receiver parts coming in, and they've added Dontavian Wicks. They've added Hollywood Brown. Elijah Moore is a veteran who's more of like a fourth or fifth piece at this point of his career. But you have some different options. You have some new blood in there, which could create some new ideas and maybe some new vigor that they needed on offense. Just a spark, I guess.
You said that you think A.J. Brown is traded. One, do you think he's traded this week at the NFL draft, which comes with a big-time cap hit, or do you think it happens after June 1st? And the other thing I would say is, why do you think he gets traded? Why do you think the Eagles would move him when they are clearly not a better team if A.J. Brown is elsewhere?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there, I would say, because I'll start with the June 1st issue. Yes, the cap hit savings is significant, 20+ million that they could save on the dead cap. And it seems to be trending that way, that they would wait till June. That seems to be the consensus. But two things I would say is, one, nobody's better manipulating the cap like the Eagles. The salary cap is what I would call malleable. You can bend it to your will. Howie Roseman and the Eagles know how to do that. So
like the Raiders GM Spytech, he said when Howie calls, sometimes I look at the phone twice. I'm like, I don't know if I should answer because he has that.
Right. So the salary cap's not going to stop them from doing a good deal, I would say. So the flip side is, if the Patriots are still the primary suitor and they go and get a receiver round 1 or round 2, that doesn't preclude them from doing the A.J. Brown deal, but it certainly hurts leverage on the Eagles side, I would say. So are they better off just doing it next week? That's on my radar. It seems like they're waiting till June. All the tea leaves say they're waiting till June. I'm just not so sure, because this is the best time to do a deal now, where if you just take the cap hit out of it, and they can maneuver that a little bit. It's tough. I mean, it'd be tough to swallow, but they can do it and just treat it like a sunk cost and work around it. Because these teams are going to fill needs here soon. Now, maybe the Patriots and Eagles from their past talks have like sort of a wink-wink situation. It's just tough because the Eagles at one point wanted a first-round pick and more. My understanding was a first-round pick and a second-round pick. It's going to be really hard to get that. Now, can the Eagles live with not hitting the home run and just hitting a double here? And I don't know, maybe they can get a huge value here. But I think to get the most, to maximize it, you got to do it in the next week. That's just my opinion right now.
And last thing for you, do you think A.J. Brown truly wants out of Philadelphia?
I do, yeah. Now that can change, or maybe he would say different publicly. That is my sense, just as this has progressed. People I've talked to certainly believe that, and they have ties to AJ. So, but look, I mean, if they can't pull it off, then, he's got to be comfortable staying as well. So it seems very fluid right now, and it didn't get done in March. This is a new window. This is kind of the second window after free agency to try to knock this out, and we'll see.
Jeremy Fowler, we appreciate it. So interesting because, look, I mean, A.J. Brown is a winner. He's one of the best receivers in football, and this is in my opinion at least, and I think a lot of people's opinion, that this is a Super Bowl contender that, look, they need A.J. Brown. So for the fact that he could be traded here still shocks me, but it is unbelievable. All right, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, we appreciate the time. Great insight, great context about the article you wrote with Tim McManus just a few weeks ago. We appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Thanks.
ESPN's Jeremy Fowler here on Bet Park Saturday, live from the Sportsbook at Parks Casino. You on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. So fascinating stuff there by Jeremy Fowler. A lot to unpack there when you talk about, excuse me one second, everything the Eagles have dealt with, really, with Jalen Hurts and this offense and A.J. Brown. And Jeremy Fowler believes that A.J. Brown wants out of Philadelphia. Great conversation there, as the Eagles are just a few days away from the NFL draft. And look, they have a lot of needs. And I would tell you that the Eagles are better with A.J. Brown on this football team. They have 8 picks in the 2026 NFL draft from Pittsburgh, including 4 comp picks. They have a lot of needs. We're going to get into some of that later. What Howie Roseman has learned from some of those draft busts. We're going to talk about that much later. But, I mean, clearly, the Eagles are a better team. But is this going to work? Is this going to work with A.J. Brown? And by the way, is Jalen Hurts going to be able to progress in the Sean Mannion offense? A lot to transpire over the next week at the NFL draft from Pittsburgh. All right, let's get back to the Philadelphia Flyers back in the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. Tonight they are in Pittsburgh. Game 1 at 8 o'clock against the Penguins. And I have to say, and I think a lot of people are on board with this, I was completely wrong about the Philadelphia Flyers. Not a little wrong, 100% completely wrong. A month and a half ago, this team was dead, done, buried, irrelevant. We weren't talking about the playoffs. You were talking about the draft, the future, what went wrong. Oh, they're in the second rebuild. And then it flipped. It just flipped on a dime. And the team, they got hot, red hot. They became the hottest team in hockey. They're the hottest team in hockey. They have the best record since March 11th. Out of nowhere, the same group that looked lifeless is now playing with pace and confidence, with edge. They are winning games. They are finishing. Their goaltending, maybe the most important. They look like a team that believes. They look like a team that can beat Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Do you believe in the Flyers? This run is great. And you know, we've seen this before. We've seen the Flyers get in and make these crazy runs. I mean, you go back to 2010. Now, this team is not as talented as 2010. That barely got into the playoffs and made this great run to the Stanley Cup final against the Chicago Blackhawks. We're not talking about that. But for the Flyers to just get in the playoffs and in the manner which they've done so with this very young team, it says a lot. And I know being there the other night, Monday night when they clinched against Carolina, running into Danny Briere, the GM, and Keith Jones, the president, you could just sense that, you know, they were just on pins and needles. They were on edge. They wanted to see it happen just because they're Flyers, right? I mean, those guys are Flyers, and they have felt the pain, like the fan base, on this second rebuild to really try to get back to the playoffs. And it's been tough. It's been a tough run. I mean, the Flyers have not been this great team since 2010, and it has all fallen apart. That was 16 years ago. And so what felt like a lost season just 6 weeks ago is suddenly no more of this maybe next year. This team has forced their way back into the conversation. They're in the playoffs, and I think they can win this series. Do they win this series? Can Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin use their experience and rattle the inexperience out of the Flyers? And yes, I think some of that hate's going to come out. Rick Taka talked about it. Former Flyers star Chris Therien, he told me yesterday when I spoke to him that he thinks within 2 minutes, after years of just these kind of polite, nice games between the Flyers and Penguins, the hatred's going to come out between the Penguins and the Flyers tomorrow in 2 minutes. I agree with him. Now, look, you still have Crosby, you still have Malkin. Rick Tocchet was the assistant coach with the Penguins when they win back-to-back Stanley Cups. So he has that experience. He's played on Pittsburgh. Remember, Rick Tocchet, the Flyers coach, when he's playing for the Flyers in, 92, gets traded to the Penguins. So he knows the rivalry. He knows how much these two teams hate each other. Now, are we going to see that crazy hate? And I don't think it's at that level right now because this is a young, fun group with the Flyers. And look, this team is not a Stanley Cup Flyers team, okay? But could they beat this Penguins team? You better believe it. I think so. Former Flyer Brad Marsh believes the Flyers can win this. He told me that yesterday, that the Flyers can win this series. Do they win it? Regardless, it's just great that they got in. They're at a different point than the Eagles and the Phillies and the Sixers. They're at a different point. And so for the Flyers just to get in is fantastic. It's a breath of fresh air. And I just love the resilience. I'm glad they are in. It should be a lot of fun starting tonight. And we're going to talk to former Flyers goalie Brian Boucher coming up at 1 o'clock. It should be fantastic. We're going to get some insight for him. And of course, tomorrow, speaking of rivalries, the Sixers in Boston against the Celtics, 1 p.m. And what do you make of this series? Now, while the Flyers, I think, can beat the Penguins, I just don't see it with the Sixers. I just don't see the Sixers having an opportunity to beat the Celtics. And whether Joel Embiid ends up playing on the back end of this series or not, him in and out of the lineup, we've talked about it, to nauseum, that it just doesn't work. And look, Sixers fans the other night chanting, "We want Boston, we want Boston." Careful what you wish for, because the Sixers are not beating Boston. They're just not. And I know you don't want to hear it, but it's just the truth. And if you just take a step back and go, we've been here before, different year, same old story. It's the same old story with the same drama. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They win the playoff game against the Magic, and here we are. Here we are with the Philadelphia 76ers that, okay, we're back in the playoffs, but we're taking on the Celtics. A Celtics team that has been to the NBA Finals, has won the NBA Finals with this group, and the Sixers are just not in that class. And I love Tyrese Maxey. I love VJ Edgecomb. But this team, they just don't have that polish that you need to win these games. And I know they've played them close in the regular season that Paul George wasn't a part of and that Jason Tatum wasn't a part of. When you look at the playoff history, I mean, look at this. The Sixers, it's been since 1982 since they have beaten the Boston Celtics. Now, that means nothing for this year. I get it. But they're not beating the Celtics. I just don't see it. Not in 6, not in 7. Honestly, I barely see a path here to them making it interesting. Do I think the Sixers take a game in this series and win a game in this series? Absolutely. And yes, again, they played them close, season series 2-2. But there's no Jason Tatum. There's no Paul George. Fine. And whether Joel Embiid plays or not, I think is irrelevant. He's not playing tonight. He's still ruled out, recovering from that surgery. But how do you beat Boston? How do you beat Boston? VJ Edgecomb is going to have to come up huge. And I think he will. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I just don't think it's going to be enough for the Philadelphia 76ers to find a way to get into the NBA playoffs. And maybe it happens. Maybe they shock the world. I'm just not seeing it. And for a team that has not made it out of the second round of the playoffs since Allen Iverson in 2021 is awful. And that's why I say, and this is a conversation for a later date that we've talked about, you got to trade Joel Embiid this offseason because whatever's going on here just doesn't work. It's time. We're 12 years into this? It's just time. And the Celtics are a polished team, is a polished team that the Sixers just cannot beat. I hope I'm wrong. I do, because it'd be a lot of fun if the Flyers and Sixers can make a playoff run. And then you have the draft this week, and hopefully the Phillies get their act together. I am hoping that the Sixers can get going here. But come on. I'm just not seeing it. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. And I'm not blaming Daryl Morey. I'm not blaming Nick Nurse. It's just the situation. And I think on paper going into the season, you have a great team. But I just don't see it. But the Sixers, in any event, they are here. And they say, look, despite the odds, because the Sixers are 12.5-point underdogs in game 1 tomorrow against the Boston Celtics in Boston at 1 o'clock. Despite being underdogs, the Sixers are not only happy to be here, but they say they are not going to go down quietly. Here are the Sixers on facing the Boston Celtics.
Great. It feels great, man. I ain't gonna lie. It doesn't matter how we get in there. I just wanted to get in. I promised some guys that we were gonna get in the playoffs. I promised Kyle before the season. Called me in around May. I said there's just no chance that I'm gonna let you not maybe in the playoffs next year. And then, we had a lot of guys on our team that haven't been to the playoffs. Dalen Terry came up to me before the game, said he's been to play-in like 3 times and haven't made it out. Barlow said that. Jabari, Trendon, Bona, Justin, all those guys haven't been to the playoffs. VJ, all those guys haven't been to the playoffs. So it was great. It means everything. It means everything, man. The way last season went, I just didn't want to have that feeling again. And, I just challenged myself, this summer or last summer. And I feel like I rose to that challenge. Some injuries in this middle of the season kind of hurt me, but we're here now. You know what I'm saying? We're here now, and we are in the playoffs, and That's what matters. That's what matters most. And like I said, I named all the guys that haven't been in the playoffs, and I told them, like, Dalen Terry just came up to me at shooting around and said, please, bro, just please. Just get me in there, dog. I done been in the play-in 4 years straight. Like, I said, we're going to the playoffs, so don't worry about it, DT. So this is a good feeling, man, and now I'm just ready to compete.
I'm gonna be honest, it's great to be in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Some teams are home, but it's great to be in the playoffs, man. I'm super excited. You know, obviously we're gonna play against a really good team. So now, you know, it's on to the next game. Now we're focused on that next game. So yeah, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, it means a lot. You know, it means a lot. Again, to your point, you know, the way last season was, that was about as tough as a season that I've been a part of. But for us to turn it around, and, you know, we've dealt with some adversity this year, but we got through it. And, you know, none of that matters. Now we're playing at the best. You know, this is what you play for. This is the best part of the season. So we gave ourselves a chance.
Go back to the opening press conference of the year. I said we got a really, really big hole to dig out of, and we want to get in the tournament somehow. Wasn't pretty. Wasn't easy and wasn't pretty, but we're here now, and now we got to see what we can do with it.
This group tough. This group, we ain't backing down from nobody. Trust me, if y'all seen our practices early in the year, I thought we were trying to kill each other. I was like, listen, hey, this is too physical for me. I'm going to sit on the sideline. But it's a good thing, though. It's a really good thing. And we have a lot of tough guys out there who we're not going to take no mess. And I think that's going to be good for us.
I ain't scared of nobody. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I'm a guard, regardless of who you is. I'm going to try. And I ain't scared. Like, I ain't going to back up if you're running at me. Man, you just got to run me over or something, man. I'm going to be honest.
We're playing against winners. We're playing against champions. This is where they play their best basketball. So we respect that. We're gonna have to challenge that. But you know, they've been great for a couple years now. You know, they're a well-oiled machine over there. Great coach, great roster, 2 studs, superstars over there. And just a ton of just guys that just know how to play the right way. So it's going to be a challenge. You know, we just got to be ready for it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be fun, though. Boston's a great team, great fan base, great organization, and I just can't wait to go there and play.
I mean, listen, they're playing great. They've played really great all season. You know, they got a bunch of guys that have been together. I mean, a core group of guys that have been together for a long time through a lot of winning and a lot of deep runs. Tremendous challenge for us. But we'll see if we can go figure something out between now and Sunday.
Like I said, really good team. You know, they just added Tatum back. We haven't seen them with Tatum, but obviously they're a really good team. I think we split the series this year. Yeah, so I say, man, we just got to just go out and play hard every night. I say, you know, they're well coached. Obviously, they got a lot of shooters, a lot of great players. So I said, we just got to be ready for any adversity that's going to come around.
It'll be a great atmosphere in both arenas. I think that's always a blast. You know, when you got two arenas that are electric with energy and playoff time, you gotta really look forward and enjoy that. Yeah, and we'll do our best.
Yeah, man. I love Philly fans, man. I'm gonna be so honest, man. They were loud, man. The intensity, physicality, it was great. That's the type of game I live for. You can be physical, crowds involved, man. Yeah, man. I'll be honest, I couldn't ask for a better like debut kind of playoff experience, kinda. I mean, that was great. I enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah, we could tell VJ Edgecomb enjoying every single second of that play-in game against the Orlando Magic. He was a lot of fun to watch in that, right? I mean, the intensity, you know, Nick Nurse kind of joked he was wild, and Edgecomb, we're going to hear that sound in a moment, but Edgecomb kind of joked, well, hey, if I have to play wild and that's going to get us a W, then sure enough, and I will tell you that it's not often in this city, especially with the Sixers, that a rookie walks in and immediately changes the conversation. But that's really exactly what VJ Edgecomb has done here, right? Let's be honest about it. VJ Edgecomb has been fantastic. He's been great and really a breath of fresh air for someone that comes in. And there's been questions over the years about Joel Embiid's work ethic and obviously all the injuries and things that are not necessarily all his fault, but I don't think anyone would tell you that Joel Embiid is the hardest worker and he's watched his diet and he's had a lot of maturing to do and a lot of maturity. And I would tell you, I don't think Joel Embiid's comfortable being a leader. But VJ Edgecomb, different story. And I think between Edgecomb and Maxey, you're going to have what I believe will be the best backcourt in the NBA, potentially for a decade. And the impression that Edgecomb has made so far, you just go, it's fantastic. This guy's going to be great. And I think VJ Edgecomb is not going to get rattled in this series against the Celtics. Is he going to have some inexperienced moments and some moments that he's going to need to learn from? And maybe he does play a little out of control and a little wild for a hot second. But this guy's energy and determination and work ethic is second to none. And you bring that with Maxey, I think this can be special. And I think that's the way the Sixers are going to have to steal a game in this series against the Celtics is those two guys doing it, right? And Edgecomb really getting that edge and finding a way to beat the Celtics. But what Edgecomb has done from the moment he has stepped onto the floor, and really since the moment he was drafted, he was in the gym early working with Tyrese Maxey at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning when nobody's watching. It's why he's been so successful. It's why he's been so good. And this guy's not just a hype guy, but he hasn't just been putting up empty numbers on a bad team. He's been great. He's been fantastic. And so I looked this up. About VJ Edgecomb. Among NBA rookies, he's played the most minutes. He has the most steals, third most points per game, second in free throw percentage. And we saw what we did on opening night going way back against the Boston Celtics. And I think he can put up 20, 30, 35 in a game in this series when you talk about it. And this is a guy that if he is an ounce of what he was against the Orlando Magic in that play-in, if he brings that intensity and he brings that fire and brings that edge to this series, the Sixers, I think, can steal a game, maybe two. I still don't think they win the series, right? But I would tell you, VJ Edgecomb, he's got it. He's got that it factor. The work ethic, the ability, the temperament. He kind of said it. He's not afraid of anybody. He's not going to back down. He likes the big stage. He likes the pressure. With the season on the line, he's prepared for it because he does his homework. And he has that work ethic. And he didn't just show up in that Orlando game. He controlled stretches of the game. The confidence, the shot making, the poise. And yes, look, did he have some moments where he looked a little wild? But fast forward to 5 years from now, this guy's going to be in control of this team. And one day, Maxey's going to go, no, that guy over there, VJ Edgecomb, he's the face of the franchise. That's where it's headed. And that's why I keep going. You got to trade Joel Embiid and let these two guards do their thing. And so this guy, look, he has not been in the league for 5 years. He's been in the league for 5 minutes, and he already looks like a poised veteran. And yes, are there things he has to work on and tighten up and maybe, to Nick Nurse's point, not play as wild? But from the get-go, this guy has put in the heavy work, the heavy minutes, and he has star behavior. VJ Edgecomb has star behavior. He is a star in the making, and we're seeing it. We saw it in that Magic game. And he has all the tools, the athleticism, the instincts, the defensive energy, and the mindset just really, really jumps out. It really does. He doesn't defer. He doesn't disappear. He is, I think, the complete package, and he's going to get better. VJ Edgecomb is going to get better, and you look at his trajectory. Again, he's going to be a star in this league. I really, really believe it. And I'm excited to see what he does against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and the Celtics team that has been here, done that. Okay, the Celtics. You look at what the Celtics have done. I want to see them on this big stage in this rivalry. I cannot wait to see VJ Edgecomb, more so than Tyrese Maxey. But I really want to see what the future looks like because you have stars you are facing, guys that have won the NBA Finals, guys that have been to the NBA Finals, and here you are. And VJ Edgecomb, to his credit, you got to hear this. He is not afraid of anybody. Listen to VJ Edgecomb.
I ain't scared of nobody. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a guard, regardless of who you is. I'm gonna try, and I ain't scared. Like, I ain't gonna back up if you're running at me. Man, you just gotta run me over or something, man. I'm gonna be honest.
Again, I thought it was a little wild for him, right? I thought some of the things he did with the ball was a little wild, but again, he played great in other aspects. So he really impacted the game. I mean, really, again, the open floor, take it to the front of the rim and score or get fouled, and then all the rebounding and all the defense. So, like I said, I think it's really good for him to get that one under his belt.
Yes, I did. Nah, I was tweaking a little bit tonight. But I was able to sell in a little bit, calm down. I mean, I guess it happens when you let a kid, play in such a high-intensity game. I mean, but I was out there having fun. So if I got to play wild for us to win, I'll play wild. So, yeah.
A little bit more off-the-script decisions tonight with the ball, but it didn't matter the rest of the game, right? He was flying in for rebounds. He was guarding really hard. And I think that's a good one to get under his belt from an offensive standpoint. He's still, that's the thing about him. He's going to impact the game, even maybe when he's not playing the greatest offense in the world, but he still impacted the game in a big way.
He always just seems to make winning basketball plays, whether it's, we don't know how or where he's at. Somehow he comes up with a huge rebound, just flying over top someone or chasing the ball down or getting his hands in a pile. He just has so many intangibles that contributes to winning. So he's built for the playoffs. That's the teams that succeed are full of those kind of guys. And, once everything else starts to click, man, he's continuing to prove that he's special.
He was great, man. Like, he played hard. He played really good defensively. I think he had like 11 rebounds or something like that. And that's big time. Huge, man. It was huge, man. He made some big buckets down the stretch. In the fourth, made big free throws. He was very composed, so I was proud of him.
He asks questions. He's, it comes natural. He wants to learn. He wants to get better. He wants to see what I'm seeing. He wants to, kind of just dissect the game and look at it differently. So the relationship is just natural. When we, after practice, we go find our space on the other side of the court, and we'll do our work. And he'll tell me a situation that he had in a prior game, or something will come up, and he's like, we'll have a session. Like, let's unpack that. What are you looking at? And then all right, this is what I would have done in these situations, and just to get to my spots, or try to find space in that play. So it's just a natural relationship that we have on the court. Like I said, he's been a little brother, and I love the kid. He's a good kid, great teammate, good kid. He's all around.
And I think he is really, we're talking about VJ Edgecomb, a star that is going to be embraced in this city for the next decade. He has that Philly edge, that mentality, that toughness. I really love this guy. Now, Paul George, he says, too, that they are not going to back down in this series. They are not going to back down against the Boston Celtics, despite what appears to be a lopsided series going into play. And Dominic Barlow said it yesterday as well. Despite being 12.5-point underdogs in Game 1 against the Celtics Sunday at 1 o'clock, he said, quote, "I don't think we should go into this thinking we are underdogs. I think we should be thinking we are as good as them and we'll compete with them and have that mindset." Now, I go, that sounds great. Not happening. If you're on the team, you have to think that way. You have to believe. If you don't believe and you're having the thoughts that I have or any of the fans have, there's no way. There's no way. So it should be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I got to tell you, I'm just not seeing it with the Sixers. We are hoping to have Tom McGinness join us from Boston. He's told us that he's stuck in traffic trying to get to Sixers practice with the team in Boston as they get set to take on the Celtics tomorrow at 1. So we're still hoping to have Tom McGinness join us later in the show. Let's get back to the NFL draft. Eagles 8 picks coming up on starting Thursday in that first round. And when you talk about what Howie Roseman has done over the years, he's hit some major, major home runs and grand slams with those first overall picks, with the top draft picks in the first round. He's had some busts. What I find interesting is that Howie Roseman still thinks about it. He says every single day, Howie Roseman thinks about the guys that have been busts. I mean, he's hit home runs on Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson and Devontae Smith and Jalen Carter and Jordan Mailata. I mean, come on, Jordan Mailata, really? It's been fantastic. Of course, the other ones, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor, Andre Dillard, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, even Derek Barnett. We've seen the busts. We've seen the swings and misses. We've seen the ones, oh, my goodness, are you kidding me? How do you not draft Justin Jefferson and take Jalen Reagor? How do you pass on Justin Jefferson? So Howie Roseman, very analytical guy, arguably the best general manager in professional sports, let alone in football. But I got to tell you, I love how Howie processes this. He says he thinks about it every day. And so the Eagles talked this week about their mentality going in to the NFL draft and what that looks like. So listen to Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni about the Eagles' mentality going into the NFL draft.
I think about the first round picks that I've missed on, I don't know, every day, really, if I'm being honest with myself. I think that sometimes when I think about those picks and think about the reasons that I miss on those picks, sometimes I even overcompensate, So if you're bringing me somebody that may look like one of those guys, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions, and I'm going to be skeptical. And I'm going to be skeptical in my own report on those guys. I feel like they've also helped me really get better at my job. And I think if it wasn't for those mistakes, I think a lot of the successful picks may not have happened. So, I can't go back and change the past. I'm very comfortable kind of understanding that as much as I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to try my hardest to be as perfect as I can. Expect the worst. I think we go into this draft being very comfortable with having 23 guys we're ready to take. We're there, ready and prepared for that. If something happens that somebody who's higher on our board than 23rd is available, we'll be ready for that. If there's an opportunity that we think makes sense to move up based on the value of that player, we'll move up. If we have multiple guys at our spot and there's a trade that makes sense to move back, we'll move back. It depends exactly where you're picking. I think when you're talking about the first round picks, you're hoping you're getting a 2-contract player that has Pro Bowl potential. And so you're looking at it over hopefully, 8, 9, 10-year period. And then I think as you go through the draft, those expectations change just based on really the research on those picks. When you're in the 5th round, can you expect that you're going to get an 8, 9, 10-year player based on the resource? Maybe not. Obviously that's what we're looking to do, and that's what we're looking to hit on. And so I think those come into account based on the players who are available. And if there's a player that's available at a position that's perceived that we're strong at right now, and we think this is going to be an elite player in the NFL, we're going to take that player. I feel like the draft is its own entity. You go into the draft and you got to take the best players available, certainly within a stack. When you talk about best players available, it's hard to stack guys and go, hey, this guy's 6th, this guy's 9th. But you do it based on tiers, based on tiers of the quality of the player. So within that tier that you've graded guys equally, you have a position that you think is more important to your scheme, to where you are from a team building perspective. Yeah, you may take the 8th guy over the 6th guy, but they're going to be in the same tier. And so I think the biggest mistake we can make is assuming we know what the team is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, and missing out on a player because we have a perceived need, and then we don't fill the need because the player's not good enough. So I think that's probably a long-winded way to say that nothing that we've done up until this point will affect the evaluations that we have on draft day. I probably would want to hold our cards close to the vest here, so close to the draft, Jeff. But I would say we have a system evaluating players that really fits and transcends scheme, and the criteria and qualities that we're looking for in offensive linemen. They fit not only this staff and our last staff, but the way that we're thinking. So, certainly there's tweaks when you have a new scheme and new coaches come in, but I think that we got a good system that fits the players and the people that we've brought in, and so I'm excited about continuing to add. One of the things about drafting players is you're drafting, and they're a little bit older in this draft, maybe the last class that they're this old because the COVID guys, this will be the last year COVID guys, but to come in and expect 21, 22, 23-year-old players to be the best version of themselves, it's probably a little naive. And so just like all of us, these players need to be developed. We got to figure out the things that they are further along with and developed, and then have a lot of trust in our player development staff, our coaching staff, the people in this building to get the best out of those, figure out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses, and work on those so we're getting the best version of a player. And a lot of times in the draft, we'll talk about what could this player be in year 3? What could this player be at the maturity of the player, not just the first year. And so we do that because we think we have the right people in the building to get them at their peak.
As these guys get in here, our job is to develop them as coaches, put them in the right positions to succeed, but then ultimately help them get better fundamentally, help them learn the game better, help them get better situationally, and put all those things together, within the strength staff, help them get stronger, help them get quicker, help them get in better shape, all those different things. And provide them opportunity to be able to do that, and our expertise to be able to do that. So regardless of the player that we bring in, age, whatever it may be, free agent, draft pick, undrafted free agent, we're going to work our butts off, obviously, to help them become better football players within all those things I just spoke of. My experience has always been, again, a guy that loves football, a guy who is tough, and a guy who has high football IQ, God willing, he's going to reach his ceiling. And so we put an enormous amount of time in trying to figure all those things out because, and obviously the most important thing is, are they talented enough to be sitting in that, in that room and in that discussion? And it starts with that. But no, landscape, things have changed, right? There's no doubt things have changed, but it's like everything, you adapt with how things have changed. Like, and I, again, won't get into all those things, but no, I don't find it. You do your homework, you do your due diligence, and you can get a good perspective. And and with Zoom and the amount of times that you can talk to these guys, really you're able to gather a lot of good information, and from all the information that how he gathers in his way, but but as coaches, I think we have a good feel of those things that are important to us, and we talk about those things with Howie, and Howie talks about those things with us, and within the process of this.
If you're forcing something, you're not really filling the need anyway. So when we drafted Cam, I think that's the easiest example to talk about. The conversation a little bit was, is this guy a Pro Bowl center? Do we think this guy can come in and play at an incredibly high level? And so that's even before you get into the question of, well, this guy may be backup. You may be taking somebody in the second round who may not play for a year. And so it's so hard to find elite players at any position that you certainly wouldn't want to turn down the opportunity at an important position to get a player that you think has a chance to be a good starter, a Pro Bowl starter. So it starts there with evaluation of the player. And then having guys, like Lane on this team and the elite level that he plays with, I think watching him and watching how he works, watching how he trains, watching how he dedicates his life to this game during the week, during the season, I mean, that's instrumental in understanding what it takes to be a great pro, you know? And so there's so much value in watching those guys instead of hearing about those guys. You know, I said when we talked about Kelsey, you know, at some point he was going to retire, and then there'd be this legend of Jason Kelsey. But Cam got to see it, and he got to see what it took to be a Pro Bowl level player. So there's value like that, as long as the player in and of himself is worthy of the selection of wherever you're taking.
I think that's fascinating there. Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni going into detail, pulling the curtain back on the Philadelphia Eagles and their mindset going into the draft. And I really love what Howie said there about he thinks about the bus in that first round all the time. And he's learned from it. And they have been home runs the last handful of years. All right, let's get back to the Philadelphia Flyers. Game 1 in Pittsburgh tonight of the playoffs. The Flyers back in the playoffs for the first time since 2020. Let's get more on the Flyers from former Flyers goalie Brian Boucher joining us on Bet Park Saturday from Pittsburgh. Brian, what's happening?
Not much. Excited. Big day today. Playoff start. Flyers back in it. Can't wait.
I cannot wait either. Are you surprised like the rest of us? I mean, you talk about 6 weeks ago, the Flyers look really lifeless that, okay, they're not going to make it. They're in this kind of second rebuild. And then it felt like out of nowhere, and look, they've been the hottest team in hockey since, March 11th? And here we are back in the playoffs. It's been a great 6 weeks. Are you surprised that we are talking about this and the Flyers are playing in the playoffs tonight?
I guess mildly surprised, truthfully. I mean, being around this team on a daily basis, I got the sense internally that they really had a belief inside that locker room that they could get this done. And I think they needed some help, no question. They needed help from the New York Islanders. They needed help from the Columbus Blue Jackets in their division. It did end up being a situation where the wild card was in play, but Detroit certainly they faltered as well. But I got the sense internally that these guys really believed. And you know, when you get goaltending the way they have all year long from Dan Vladar and after the Olympic break, Sam Ersson, all of a sudden the team, and you add some depth pieces. Well, I shouldn't say depth pieces. You add pieces that create depth. When you get Forster back and Martone, you're like, wow, maybe this team does have something cooking here. So, I mean, they were playing good hockey. You needed help. So I guess in a way, a mild surprise in as far as I'm concerned.
You have been a part of a lot of great Flyers, Penguins rivalries and heated games. I talked to Chris Terrian yesterday, and he was telling me, look, the last handful of years have kind of been these polite games between the Flyers and Penguins, and he thinks 2 minutes into game 1 tonight in Pittsburgh, things are going to get heated and that hatred's going to come out. You know, look, it has been subdued the last few years. Do you think things are going to get heated, you know, really fast tonight? I mean, look, they still have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. This Flyers group is obviously different, minus Sean Couturier for the most part. But how heated do you think this rivalry in this series will get?
Yeah, I don't know that the Flyers want to get involved in a series where it becomes, you know, a bit of a, you know, a sideshow. That's not the way this team is built. I do think it's going to be physical. I mean, the one thing about the Flyers, they lack playoff experience. I mean, all the way around. I mean, I'm looking at all their guys in the roster, and there's a lot of guys with zero playoff experience. One thing they're going to find out pretty quick when that puck drops the first period, it's as fast, it's as intense as you will ever find. And I think what happens is in that first period of the first game of the playoffs is you go from what you thought was intense hockey to another level times 3. And I think it'll be interesting to see how guys respond to that. Here's the thing about this series. If the Flyers get undisciplined and get unhinged, they're going to lose this series. The Penguins power play is way too good to put them on the power play and have it become a special teams event in this series. So the Flyers have to be disciplined. They have to play in control. They got to keep it 5-on-5. They've got to find a way to frustrate Crosby, Malkin, and some of their other big guys at 5-on-5. And maybe they get unhinged and the Flyers can go on the power play. A power play for the Flyers, 32nd in the NHL across the season, but in the last like 3-4 weeks, I started to see a much different looking power play. Now, when you add guys like Forster and Martone to your power play, all of a sudden it looks a lot different. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about the overall number for the Flyers power play. Look at it in the last little bit, see that they're gaining confidence, and maybe if they get on the power play, that could be a difference maker for them.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think about, the chess match and the game within the game, and I'm thinking if you're the Penguins, you're going to try to rattle this young Flyers team. I mean, is that the obvious, you think, approach from the Penguins, from the coaching staff down to Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Letang, to really just try to take away, the poise from the Flyers that they're just not going to have and try to rattle them early on with the speed and the aggression and make the Flyers really a team that maybe is not so composed and really just take that away.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one guy that I'm circling, if I'm in the Penguins locker room, the one guy I'm going after is Michkov right away. I mean, he's proven that he does take undisciplined penalties at times. He's done it this year and in his time as a Flyer. So if there's one guy I'm going after, it's him. And see if you can get him to take some penalties that hurts his team. And then on top of that, go after, the young guys. Go after Denver Barkey. Go after Porter Martone. They're unknowns in this series, but can you find a way to get underneath their skin where maybe they don't become the effective players that they were down the stretch? For sure, I think that's something that the Penguins have to do. The one thing about this Pittsburgh Penguins team is they've got a very effective fourth line. Connor Dewar, Blake Lizotte, Nola Chari might be the best fourth line in the NHL. They play hard. They play in your face. They're not afraid to mix it up. The Flyers are going to have to be ready for that. And, I think if the Flyers can stay disciplined, get some early learning lessons here in game one, whether it's the first period, the speed, the intensity, get that out of the way, come out of that first period even or better, and then get going and build confidence from there. I think the Flyers have a chance. But if the Flyers show that they're overwhelmed, that the game's going 1,000 miles an hour for them and they get unhinged, it's going to be a tough series for the Flyers. This is a very experienced group that Pittsburgh has.
Yeah, and you talk about that poise. One of the things that really just, and that way caught me off guard was the poise of Porter Martone. I mean, he's been here for 3 minutes, but he looks like he's been here for 3 years. When you look at just how polished it feels like, at least poise-wise, and just how much poise he has. And I know he's right out of school and things like that at Michigan State. What do you see from him about the poise that he has? And it looks like he's been here for a while.
Yeah, he's just he's a talented kid who gets it. I mean, there are young kids who can grasp it early, and they're special players. And you realize that they're special players because a lot of this poise takes time. Where it looks like they've been here for a while, where they either, whether it's, socially fitting in with a group that you haven't been with all year long to being comfortable in high pressure situations that it looks like you've been in the league for 10 years. Martone has all of that. To me, that's what makes him a special player. This is a different level. The playoffs are a whole new animal. This is what we'll see how far advanced he really truly is. If he fails in this playoffs, it doesn't mean that he's a bust. It just means it's a great learning experience. But having seen what I've seen in the 9 games that he's played, because those were pressure games when he's come in, I think this kid's going to do a great job. I think he's going to excel. I think sometimes being young and dumb can work in your favor. You have no experience to go off of. There's no reason to, listen, there's always going to be nerves, but there's no reason to all of a sudden shut down. I mean, you go out there, enjoy yourself, go play, do what you've been doing. And it's Pittsburgh that has the pressure. They're the ones with the experience. They're the guys, Letang, Crosby, Malkin. This could be their last dance. I mean, if you're in that locker room, you want to play well for those guys. There could be a tightness to their game that I think young guys like Martone and some of the other guys can kind of expose because they could just play free, mind-free hockey and take advantage of it.
You talk about Crosby, and I know Rick Tocchet has talked about, look, we can't let these guys kind of just rattle our cage, and we can't let the Penguins take us out of our game, despite the hate and things like that and the intensity that might be there. They have to find a way to stop Sidney Crosby. How in the world do you stop Sidney Crosby?
Well, I mean, it's one, stay out of the penalty box. I think, that's where they've had a lot of success, but they've been a good transition team as well this year. So it's going to be critical that you don't turn pucks over at the blue lines. If you don't have a play, live to see another day. Get it in deep, get it behind their D. Make Sidney Crosby come 200 feet the other way to create offense. And look, you're going to have to get some saves as well. That's the bottom line. They're going to get their opportunities. Vladar is going to have to be the guy that we saw during the regular season. 34 of his 51 starts, he gave up 2 or less. He's going to have to bring that same consistency in this series. There cannot be a drop off in his play. If there is, it's going to be a problem. But I think that's the recipe for success. I mean, listen, you want to play Sidney Crosby hard, but there's other weapons on this team aside from Crosby that you got to worry about. So it's going to take a group effort. You're going to have to be sharp. Knowing who's on the ice, when Crosby's coming on, knowing, as I mentioned, puck management, and stay out of the box. If you do that, perhaps you can frustrate him long enough that you could find a way to get the 4 wins first.
You mentioned the Flyers goalie, Dan Vladar. As a former goalie, when you watch him, I mean, he's a guy that felt like it just came out of nowhere as well. When you talk about this Flyers team, kind of a microcosm of the last 6 weeks. But Dan Vladar, he's a big reason why the Flyers are even here tonight playing game one. As a former goalie, what does he do what does he do so well? And what do you like with his game that you see? And obviously, more than the rest of us when it comes to goaltenders. What do you see from his game and why he's been so special this year?
Well, I think his game management is good. I think he recognizes when, his team could use a whistle, when it's time to slow it down. He reads the play very well. He's got good size, and I'm always a big fan of big goalies because they take up a lot of the net. But you also have to read the game well. You have to know when it's time to be aggressive, when it's not time to be aggressive, because as a big guy, you have the ability to sit back in your net a little bit, and you can play east-west plays better because you're not so aggressive. So you don't find him getting caught swimming too much. He's always in position. He always makes the opposition beat him with a good shot. And that's because he's got good hockey sense. He can read plays very well. So, and I think right now what's most important, aside from any technical stuff, is that he's playing with confidence. And confidence is a funny thing. When you don't have it, it feels like you'll never get it back. But when you do have it, you can ride it for a long time. And I think for Vladar, that confidence and that the way he's played here down the stretch, he should feel very good about himself. And if he can kind of ride that wave here into this series and get through it, I mean, who knows what can happen. And that's the reality of it. Aside from any type of technical stuff, when you feel good about yourself, the sky's the limit. Let's hope he can keep that going here.
You played 13 seasons in the NHL, 6 with the Flyers. You were part of that 2010 amazing run. What is going through the mindset of Dan Vladar as a goalie and the rest of this team before a game one like this? What is it like at skate around? What is it like as you go back to the hotel, whether you can take a nap or not before game? What is going through the mind of a hockey player before a big playoff game?
Yeah, this is a big, exciting day. I can tell you that. Even these days leading up to this, the meetings get more intense. They probably become more like football meetings, I would think. I mean, because, in football, they've got a whole week to prepare for the opponent. In the NHL, during the regular season, you don't have that type of time in between games. So the meetings, whether it's specialty teams meetings or just overall system play meetings, it's pretty condensed. But in the playoffs, it's a deep dive. It's a deep dive into their power play, into the way that they penalty kill, and the way they play their neutral zone, and the way they play their defensive zone. And then on top of it, you have meetings on, okay, let's go through every player. Let's talk about the character of certain guys. Anybody have any insight on this particular player? And guys will raise their hand. Yes, I played junior with him. I know what gets this guy unhinged. I know what you can do, what you can say to him. So there's gamesmanship that takes place. Don't forget, Rick Tocchet coached this Pittsburgh Penguin team. Like Crosby, Malkin, Rust, Letang, all these guys. Todd Reardon was there as well. So for Dan Vladar, to get back to your answer on that, your question on that, he's nervous. I don't know how well he's going to sleep this afternoon because there's major excitement before game one. you want to get through this first. You want to steal game one. I mean, if you can steal game one, now you're playing with house money. And I think that's the great thing. When you start on the road, it's business-like. There's nothing better than hearing that crowd silent and your bench coming off the bench. Everybody's cheering and yelling, knowing that you grabbed game one. You do that, it gains a lot of confidence going forward.
You talk about those pregame speeches and the meetings and things like that. I've seen clips over the years, and I've seen sneak peeks here and there of those old Peter Laviolette messages and team meetings and things like that. Who, in your opinion, in your career playing, gave the best speeches? Like whether it's between periods, whether it was pregame, who had the most intense best speeches that really just hit it home for you?
I think Lavi might have been the best motivator as a coach, truthfully.
Why? Like what is it about those speeches? Like what stands out?
Well, I think you've seen the clips where he comes in and he can be fiery, and he would say terms like get out there and rip the door off the hinges, like just like little things that he would say that you'd be like, I'm ready to go, like I'm fired up. I thought he was one of the best at it. Players don't typically stand up. Truthfully, it's very rare that you see a player stand up and give a heartfelt speech. I think everybody worries about their own business. They're focused on what they have to do. They let their play kind of do the talking and not the talking in the locker room. But I would say Peter Laviolette was one of the best at getting the guys fired up for sure.
Yeah, I remember in the locker room during one of those playoff series in 2010, his kids, he had young kids at that time, and they were running around the room, and they were playing with like the dirt. The hockey locker rooms smell awful, right? And they're running around with the laundry, and they're throwing it around in the bins. They're in their locker room as the guys are throwing their sweaty jerseys in the lockers and in the bins in the locker. And Laviolette looks over and he just gives him like the death stare. Doesn't say a word, doesn't say a word. Just gives him that stare. And those kids, they look like frightened. They look like white as ghosts, and they left it. You'd see that intensity. He almost didn't even need to say anything because that's how intense. And I love Peter Laviolette, but that's how intense he could get. And by the way, that happened after a win, right? So I remember that happening after a win, just that intensity. And is there something to be said about a coach that can do that to motivate the guys? Obviously, as professionals, you don't need much more motivation, but can a coach with that mindset and with that ability just get a little bit more out of each guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously system play, game planning, bench management during the game, adjustments during the game. These are all qualities, matchups. These are all qualities that good coaches have that they're able to do. But you're right. The next 1% sometimes is a motivating talk inside the locker room, knowing when to talk to the guys and when not to. Rick Tockett's a guy that I think has earned the respect of every player in that locker room this year. And I think the players knew what they were getting, that he was an ex-Flyer that was drafted here, had been here a couple of times. I think they respected the fact that he's an ex-player who played a hard game. He'd do anything for his teammates. He played in a lot of different situations, whether it was top end players. He played on fourth lines. He represented his country in Canada Cups. He's played in big moments. And I think players, and he's won a Stanley Cup. So I think players respect all that. But until he gets in the room and works with them on a daily basis, reacts to situations, good and bad, that's when the players start to gain the respect of a head coach. And I think he's earned the respect of everybody in that room. So when he speaks, they listen. And I'm sure that if he gives an impassioned speech, that'll be that extra 1%. And I love the fact that in this series, Tocchet has, he has intimate knowledge of, some of these guys on the other side. He's been with them a long time. Guys like Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Rust. So there's something there that I think could be an edge in this series.
Brian, we'll let you go in just a few seconds. A few last questions for you. I ran into Scott Hartnell a few weeks ago, and we were talking about just how much fun that run was in 2010. What are your favorite memories from that team, from that group? you overcome that Boston series, and then you end up in the final against Chicago. What were your favorite memories of that, and how special was that run?
Yeah, it was a fun group, fun guys that like to have fun off the ice. And I think back then you could get away with it a little bit more. But, guys enjoyed each other's company. A good mix of veterans and young guys, I think, is what I remember from that group. Stick up for one another, whether it was, sometimes it was fights, sometimes it was just getting involved. And just the overall way we did it. Like, I think a lot of people counted us out down the stretch. I think we were disappointing a lot of fans, and they were upset, but yet we got in on the last day and we rode that momentum into the first round, and really we dominated New Jersey in that first round, and then again fell behind in Boston and battled back maybe when people thought we couldn't do it, and dominated Montreal in the conference final. And unfortunately, we ran out of the magic in the Chicago series in the final, but just a group that stuck together. Even when it got doubtful from the outside, we hung in there, and it was a fun ride. I mean, I wish we would have won 2 more games, because it would have been great to have a Stanley Cup, but certainly proud of that team.
Yeah, that run, that Boston series was incredible. I'll never forget that Game 7 in Boston. You get down 3-0, and everyone's just like, okay. And I remember in the press box, everyone just goes, you know what? That was a heck of a run to even be in this game. Okay. And then you get 1. Then you get 2. You go, uh-oh. Like,
maybe.
Chills in that building.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, the Flyers are going to do it. And sure enough, you did it. As far as this series, last thing for you. Do the Flyers win this series? Do you think they win this series? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think experience matters. I'm gonna be a politician on this one. I think experience matters, and Penguins have it. They have that experience, but I also think momentum matters as well. And I think the Flyers have that. The way they had to fight to get in. Don't discredit that. I mean, in that series that we had against New Jersey, after we get in on the last day, they were the 2 seed, we were the 7 seed. They had the Hall of Famer and Marty Brodeur in goal. A lot of people were probably going to pick New Jersey in that series, yet we won that series. I'm a big believer in momentum. I think the Flyers can win this series. I think they can. They got to stay disciplined, stay out of the box. It's got to be a 5-on-5 series. They've got to defend well, and they got to get the goaltending. They do that. I think the Flyers win this series in a long win in 7 games.
I like it, Brian Boucher. I like the momentum part. All right, we appreciate it. Former Flyers goalie Brian Boucher joining us live on Bet Park Saturday from Pittsburgh. Are you at the arena? You back at the hotel?
No, in the hotel. Yep, in the hotel, getting ready.
All right, we'll have a great game broadcast tonight. Brian Boucher does a great job covering the NHL on the game broadcast now on NBC Sports Philadelphia and TNT. We appreciate the time. Should be a lot of fun this series against the Penguins. Thanks, Brian.
All right, Jeff. Thank you.
All right, Brian Boucher. Great seeing Brian from Pittsburgh as the Flyers get set for Game 1 tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins, back in the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. And it's really been 8 years since the Flyers, of course, have played playoff hockey in front of the fans. All right, it is time to play. Make your downtime fun time on the BetParx online casino sportsbook app, where there's always another way to win. The only online casino and sportsbook app that you need. The one I recommend. Pro basketball playoffs tonight in New York, hosting Atlanta, 6 p.m. in Game 1 of their series. Game 1 on Sunday afternoon, of course, 1 p.m. The 76ers taking on the Boston Celtics. Playoff hockey tonight, as we just talked about with Brian Boucher. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Flyers, Penguins. Can you wait? Bet more than the score. Bet player performances. More in pro basketball, golf, soccer, baseball, MMA, you name it, it's there. Right now, new casino users get 250 bonus spins on the hot online slot game, the Sweetest Collectum, plus up to $1,000 bonus pack in their first 24 hours. Play all your favorite casino games for real money, plus hundreds of hot online slots like Huff and Puff, Money Mansion, Triple Cash Eruption, Cleopatra, and Divine Fortunes. Plus, bet on your favorite sports right now at your fingertips, right on your phone. The BetParx online casino and sportsbook app, where there's always another way to win. You must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Michigan, or Maryland. New users only. TCs apply. See betparks.com for details. Casino bonus must be wagered. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's talk a lot more. We got to get a lot into this Sixers situation. Joining us now here on Bet Park Saturday, Sixers play-by-play man Tom McGinness, talking about the Sixers. They get set for game 1 of their playoff series against the Boston Celtics coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock in Boston. Tom, what's happening?
Not too much. We're at the arena here. Team's practicing as we speak.
Yeah, great to see you. So you got stuck in some traffic, I see. That's the Boston, Philadelphia kind of traffic, huh?
Well, it's a big weekend here. First of all, as I said, the team was watching film and then came over here. But so Monday is Patriots Day, and that's like the biggest day of the year here in Boston. Obviously, you have the Boston Marathon out in Lexington and Concord. They do the reenactment of the first battle of the Revolutionary War, and then the Red Sox play, and that's right there in Kenmare Square, which is very close to Boylston, which is the finish line. I've become pretty adept at all this stuff and watching the news and being here, and it literally is really packed. And then Boston, as you say, is not not known for traffic flow. It's notoriously bad. But right here at the Garden, teams practicing. Sounds like no one's giving anybody the Sixers a chance. And game 1 tomorrow at 1 o'clock on both 6 ABC, and we'll have the call on 97.5 The Fanatic in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and that's really the Philadelphia way, right? Like, nobody's giving us a shot. And so, obviously this is the obvious question. What do you think it will take for this Sixers team to beat the Boston Celtics? Obviously, no Joel Embiid tonight. It's unknown. It's unclear when Embiid, if and when he'll be able to return in this series. It could not, be for weeks. We don't know right now. So what do you think it will take for the Sixers to find a way to win this series against a very experienced Celtics team?
For sure. The team that, as you say, they've been together for a little while. They have continuity. Their core group has been part of a championship team. And, what they're really good at is like shot creation and the fact that they play what we call 5 out. In other words, almost every single player is beyond the arc, and then they try to take you off the dribble. They're really good. So it's difficult, Jeff, to help because your guys are, way over and then they're good at that. And then what they do is they get in and they kick the ball out. And then they got really good shooters in Brown and Hauser and Tatum and Pritchard, and Derek White has really hurt the Sixers over the last few years. We were here in March, and of all people, a guy by the name of Nehemias Queta had an incredible game. And now they got Nick Vucevic, the former Chicago Bulls center, who started his career in Philadelphia. In Orlando, and he's a really good player, and he was out for a month, but then, as you know, Tatum is back as well. So they're loaded. They're favorites. They had the 4th best record in the entire NBA. Obviously, the 2 seed in the East, they're at home. It's an unbelievable raucous crowd here. Even though the 2 teams split 2-2 over the years, they've had the Sixers numbers. I heard on the news that they played 6 times this century. So I guess for me, that's the 6th time that we've played Boston, and I know quite well we've never beaten them.
Yeah, it's been a while. 1982, the last time the Sixers beat the Celtics in a playoff series. And obviously during the regular season, they play them 2-2. They don't have Jason Tatum. There was no Paul George. And so now you look at this situation and, you don't have Joel Embiid. What is the feeling around the team that as everyone maybe on the outside is counting them out, is there the belief? Because we've heard Edgecomb, we've heard Paul George, we've heard Dominic Barlow say that, okay, no one's counting us out, but we're going to figure out a way. What is the sense around the team? Is it that, hey, they can get this done?
Steps away from where they're practicing. Trust me, they've got a confidence and a belief that they can get it done. Like, this is not the way this thing is. It's like we're coming up here with a college team or something. Are you serious? This is a competition. So believe me, they're putting together a game plan and a belief and a confidence, and they can get it done. And that's, look, the first game of the year, I remember the Sixers came in here and beat Boston, and I get it. It's the first game of the playoffs. But, they obviously have to, really play well. And, just like any road game in the NBA, like, you got to be in the game down the stretch to give yourself a chance. Like, the last time we were here, it was a game 7, and it was, I believe, a 3-point game at the half. And you're like, okay, well, Tatum had like 30 points in the second half and 51 total, and it wasn't okay. They blitzed the Sixers in that seventh game. So you just got to hang around, be tough. There's a lot to it, but it's a lot of the things that you would expect for a team to pull off an upset.
We saw what VJ Edgecomb did in that Magic playing game. And, Nick Nurse was like, maybe he's a little more wild than what I had liked or hoped for. And Edgecomb's like, well, hey, I'll play wild all day long if it gets me a W. I think we're seeing a star being born here over the course of this year. And it really started in Boston. He had that great, rookie opening day performance. But we saw it really in the Magic game as well, that this kid's going to be really, really special. What do you think the Sixers need from him, not only in game one tomorrow, but also in this entire series, and really if they can make a deep playoff run?
Well, certainly to play with that energy and corral it a little bit, because playing with that kind of energy and pop, it gets you 11 rebounds, because that's what you could just go out and use raw athleticism and finding the gaps. But when it comes to offense, and as coach said, he went a little unscripted there, and VJ postgame sort of admitted as much, but just play the way he's played. Like, this guy has delivered something in almost every single game. Like, when you consider Flag and Knipple, like, okay, so one of those two guys may win Rookie of the Year. They obviously probably will. But the rookie year that he put together with whatever it was, 15, 5, and 4 in points, rebounds, and he had an incredible first season. Like, this was amazing for a 20-year-old first-year player. And I think the fact that maybe he got that play-in experience against the Magic on Wednesday out of his system, where he's still going to be hopped up, but he knows to bring it back and dial it down just a hair, because you got to play under control and control the basketball and don't turn it over, guard the guy you're supposed to, and then go out there and make some plays. So he's been terrific. You would expect more of the same from him. It's going to be exciting. Like, kudos to him to be able to play his rookie season and play in a playoff game of this, against the Boston Celtics in this long time rivalry. Not every rookie player is getting to do that.
How much of a challenge do you think it is, the fact that, this team, when you look at their stars, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, Edgecomb, they really haven't been able to play together a lot this season. And it's really been the case for years. Guys are in and out, and Maxey and other guys have admitted this year that it's been a challenge. We have to play different ways, and I have to play a different way. And so what is the sense of the challenge right now, as Paul George's back from suspension? You still don't have, obviously, Joel Embiid, that this team can find, I don't want to say a singular way to win, because you need to be able to win in different fashions, but how much of a challenge is it that they haven't had kind of like this experience like the Celtics with this core group?
Well, like right there, you have to credit Coach Nurse, the fact that he gets these guys ready no matter who's available, like night in and night out, even if it was a Tuesday back in mid-January where, on a given night, the roster was depleted, and, he gets a report like every game as to who's available. And as you say, it sometimes fluctuates. So the challenge is, whether you've played together for 5 years or for 5 minutes, you got to collectively come together and get it done. And you can't use that as an excuse. This is a 1 o'clock on Sunday type of proposition where you got to get it done and execute in that given circumstance in a hostile environment here, as I look out at the TD Garden. And, you got to play within yourself. You can't try to do too much. You can't, keep firing if you're not hot. And, you got to play basketball and make simple plays and make it easier. Help out, trust, all of those things. Make your free throws. Don't turn it over. Keep the rebounding battle in check. Be able to guard your guy, keep your guy in front of you. And, they'll do that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's going to be exciting for sure. And the fact that the Sixers and Celtics are doing it again and the Sixers are underdogs, well, bring it on.
Do you get a sense that, and I don't know where things stand with this, but do you get a sense that Embiid could play in this series at all, or do you just?
No, Jeff, would hope that it gets pushed along and it gets later in the series where it's a plausibility. But nobody's saying that. Nobody's, the timetable is this. If it gets the game,
right.
Nobody is saying that. He's coming off a surgery where they took out his appendix, right? So it might be one thing for a guy to go back into the office after a certain amount of time, but for a player to enter an NBA playoff environment, they're going to wait till he's completely healthy. And if by any chance you can advance in the playoffs and make it even more plausible down the road, then for sure. But everybody's, wishing the best for Joel. He went through, a surgery, a major thing. So yeah, there's no timetable or if this then that. I mean, obviously, the longer the series go, the better the odds would be, but nobody's putting a number on it, as I said.
You've been doing this a very, very long time. You've called every Joel Embiid game for over a decade. How much of a shame do you think it is that with his talent and everything we have seen, his ability, winning MVP and best player on the planet in basketball, that he just hasn't been able to, for whatever reason, stay healthy. And this group as a whole really hasn't been able to just kind of bring it all together, play an entire season without, the ins and the outs and all the injuries. How much of a shame do you think it is with his talent and his ability that hasn't been able to, whether it's his fault or not, has not been able to stay healthy, and they haven't been able to, as an entire group, go into the playoffs and just be this dominant force?
Well, let me first address the his fault or not aspect of that. Like, it's not his fault. He's been injured. Shame is not really the word that I would associate with it. But obviously, it would be so much better if he was healthy, but he has the facts of the facts, and it shakes out the way it's been. And yeah, there is a number of what ifs, ... But you can't change the past. You can only hope for the future. And he's been an extraordinary talent. When he's healthy, he has been one of the best players in the world. It was here. I remember, Doc Rivers was the coach, and he asked us all to go down to the room where they have the food and where you convene during the course of a playoff series. They go through their film and whatnot, and we all watched the TNT broadcast on the off night between games in that series back in, I believe, 2023, where Barkley said Joel Embiid is the MVP. And it was very emotional, and yet we still didn't win the series. So he's got an extraordinary skill set. He has no doubt been hampered and, been affected by all of these injuries throughout the years. And it is unfortunate, but you can't really change it. And, but again, there's a person that all this has happened to, and it's obviously affected a team and an organization and a fan base, but there's no shame and there's no fault.
Yeah, I said it's a shame, that we haven't seen, we haven't seen it, kind of unfortunate that we haven't seen it all come together.
Or a parade down Broad Street with a healthy Embiid. But we'll see, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And now going forward, you got to hope that he can be as healthy as possible, that the Sixers are able to put this series and the playoffs in a situation where he is able to re-enter and re-energize the team and be a major part going forward.
Yeah, let's hope so. Final thing for you, Tom. You've called a lot of Sixers games, a lot of Sixers playoff games. There's something about Boston and Philadelphia. The energy in these arenas, in Boston tomorrow, game one, and then obviously when the series shifts to Philadelphia, what is that energy, that electricity that'll be in these buildings? What can you describe what that feels like?
Well, if you were there Wednesday, you felt it in Philadelphia at Xfinity.
Yeah.
Different, and for me, you address my city, it's like a privilege to be a part of this. And even during the regular season, this building where I sit now, it rocks. It's incredible. And you feel the waves of emotion, both in Philadelphia for Sixers home games and obviously here in Boston. And as we all know, sports is communal. It's as simple as the Toyota gave all the fans a rally towel. When 19,000 people that's like a physical thing. It's like a wave of emotion, and it gets a huge rise out of you. So it's a tremendous, like I said, I never take it for granted when it pulses through you, and sometimes here you've had to sit back and take it, right? Okay, I remember my first playoff series here was, I believe it was in 2002. So it's right after the Sixers made the finals. It was kind of a disjointed year for the Sixers in that Allen Iverson was hurt at the beginning of the year. So was Aaron McKee. Aaron with his shoulder, I think Allen with his elbow. I believe we won 43 games. We come up here with Larry Brown. It was a first round series. It was 5 games. Jim O'Brien, one of our assistant coaches, a head coach for the Sixers at a point, he had taken over for Pitino, and, they played that style with the threes. It was kind of new. I know Pitino did it in New York, but Pierce was young. They had Antoine Walker, and they fired in like 20-something threes, and they blew us out in a game 5, and you just had to sit there and take it to the final buzzer. So, but we've come in here and won, like that first game when Harden had the 45 points 3 years ago or whatever. So it's a rich tradition, like an old rivalry renewed. But to your point, like if I read it properly, like other than Dr. J and Wilt Chamberlain, the Sixers, haven't had without those two guys being on the team, haven't had a win here. So it's like that old saying, but when we do cross the threshold and beat the Boston Celtics in the NBA postseason, it'll be like ding dong, the Wicked Witch is dead. And let that be in a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, let's make it happen, Tom. There is nothing like NBA playoff basketball. We had Brian Boucher on a few minutes ago before you joined, and we're talking about playoff hockey and just the building, the Xfinity Mobile Arena, for that place to be just rocking. And I've been to the TD Garden for playoff games for the Flyers and against the Bruins, and of course Sixers-Celtics. There is nothing like these two buildings, and of course Madison Square Garden, the energy there, it certainly is a privilege to be a part of. And hopefully the Sixers, despite a lot of people on the outside counting them out, can get the job done, and Joel Embiid can return, and the Sixers can make that deep playoff run that people in this town have been just starving for.
Let's hope.
All right, Tom McGinness joining us from Boston as the Sixers get set for Game 1 of the NBA playoffs against the Celtics. Tom, we really, really appreciate you joining us today from Boston, and hopefully there's no traffic going back to the hotel tonight.
All right. Well, it's crowded here. Thank you so much. Glad to be with you.
Thanks, Tom. That is Sixers play-by-play man Tom McGinness. Does a great job. Fantastic on the radio calling Sixers games. Cannot wait to see how this series plays out. I don't think the Sixers win this series, but look, everyone's counting them out. Maybe it does happen. All right, Parks Casino, my casino of choice. Parks, great place for a night of headline entertainment and award-winning dining. Make the night complete and stay at the new beautiful Parks View Hotel, which is just steps away from the Parks Casino and offers shuttle service. Just announced, George Thorogood and the Destroyers on August 28th, Sebastian Bach and special guest Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses on October 3rd. Tickets still available for these headliners at Parks Casino. Melissa Etheridge will come to town. Tonight, the Grammy winner here at Parks Casino. Then Thursday, May 14th, Jacob Dylan and the Wallflowers. Country music singer, superstar Brantley Gilbert will be here May 15th. Andrew Dice Clay coming May 16th. That is a Saturday. And, of course, lots of headliners coming here to Parks Casino, including on June 20th, the All McCartney Live, a tribute to Sir Paul McCartney. Australian Pink Floyd here August 29th, and Grand Funk Railroad will be here in Ben Salem at Parks Casino on November 13th. ParksCasino.com to buy tickets. You must be 21 years old. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so that will do it for us today on Bet Park Saturday. A special guest to all of our guests, from Tom McGinness to Brian Boucher, and of course ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. A lot to get to, a lot to unpack as both the Sixers and Flyers get going this weekend with their first rounds against their opponents, and of course the NFL draft coming up on Thursday with the Eagles, and we'll see if that A.J. Brown trade gets done or not. A lot to talk about, of course, this week in Philadelphia sports. That'll do it for my producer, Julia Hoff. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky. We appreciate you joining us here on PHLY Sports, live from the Sportsbook at Parks Casino in Ben Salem, Pennsylvania. We'll see you right back here next Saturday from Ben Salem. Have a great Saturday.
We all silly like the mayor.